Welcome everyone to the fifth round of the Sinquefield Cup 2025. On your screen is the world champion Domaraju Gukesh. He's quietly adjusting his pieces before the game. A very important clash for him as he takes on his second, or the guy with whom he played innumerable practice games, Jan Krzysztof Duda, before the World Championship match. And so both of them know each other very well. In fact, recently they even played an exhibition blitz match where Duda won 5-1 was the score in Poland. And now, will Jan Krzysztof come out on top here is the question, or will Gukesh get his revenge? It's going to be super exciting. The players are ready. The clock is set. A handshake and off we go, guys. This video, dear friends, is the Chess Mood recap of the day. Chess Mood brings with it innumerable beautiful video courses led by Grandmaster Avetic Grigorian. You can use this website to take your game to the next level. There's a 1 month free premium membership from the link in the description, so don't miss it and use it so that you can become a better chess player. Duda opens the game with 1d4 and Gukesh responds back with the super solid d5. We have pawn to c4, the queen's gambit, and the queen's gambit is declined with e6. Knight comes out to f3. Battles between players who know each other have their own contours, sometimes very difficult for the world to understand because they might have played maybe hundreds of games in this opening, and then very suddenly you change one move and the other player is a bit confused. Like Gukesh goes knight d7 here, and Duda is a bit surprised, plays e3 after nearly 11 minutes of thought. This move does block the bishop on c1, and Gukesh goes a6. One plan is to take on c4 and play b5, but Duda bolsters the c4 pawn with pawn to b3. b6 comes up ahead, bishop coming out on this diagonal, and generally it does happen that when your opponent is going to put the bishop on b7, you take on d5 because that kind of solidifies the pawn on d5 and now the bishop would be blocked. So he takes back and now Duda plays his bishop to b2. And Gukesh goes bishop to b7. Now you'll see that this bishop is a bit blocked, but on the other hand, g3 is a very risky move. In fact, it's not a move that the engines really are happy with, but it has been played before. Bishop comes out to d6, so Gukesh already in his prep still with bishop d6, bishop g2, and he plays queen e7. Now one idea here could be bishop a3, although the bishop on b2 is not that great. If traded, it would weaken the dark squares, which is why a4 has been played here to stop perhaps bishop a3, and also preparing bishop a3 from white side later. And h5, Gukesh keeping his king flexible could go long side as well. h5, h4 becomes a dangerous idea. Queen c1 by Duda, he's planning bishop a3. He wants to trade off the very strong dark squared bishop of Gukesh on d6, but Gukesh says, not so soon, my friend. Bishop a3 is met with the knight on c3 being a bit loose, but Duda goes knight takes e4. He allows Gukesh to take back with the pawn, and now knight d2, but this position already substantially better for black. Gukesh can now push his pawn to h4. Yes, he does. Pawn to h4 played. Amazing. This is fantastic chess by Gukesh. He goes bishop a3, trying to trade the bishop, And now we have many good moves. You can take here and then come up queen e6. You can even go long castle. But queen e6 directly played. And Gukesh's idea is that once you take on d6, he wants to take back with the pawn. This opens up the c file and also takes into control the e5 square. So pretty good. Duda comes queen a3. And now look at this. d6 is under attack. Knight c4 becomes a real threat. And Gukesh ignores it. He goes knight f6. He could have done something about it like rook h6, bolstering the d6 pawn, but knight f6. And Duda says, well, Gukesh, what's your plan? b6 hanging, d6 hanging? Are you giving me a free pawn? Gukesh says, yes, I'm giving you a free pawn. Go and take this pawn. It doesn't matter to me. He takes it. Knight takes b6 happens. And now Gukesh has to think, why did he give up the pawn? He goes a5. I love this move. One idea is bishop a6. And if the knight comes back, you can go knight d5, knight b4, blocking the position. d3 is a weak pawn. He takes, g takes h4. And I like this move because all the time the threat was like take, rook h1, bishop h1, queen h3. The bishop was getting trapped here. Now gh4, he doesn't have to worry about it. Oof, rook h4 wasn't a great move. Bishop a6, perhaps better, because now Duda can go bishop f1 with the idea of bishop b5 check. White is the one in the driver's seat. He goes rook c1. Actually, maybe now allowing Gukesh to go bishop a6. Can Gukesh find that move? The game is becoming super sharp and swinging from one side to another, and he plays it. And remember, you can block this bishop, but then we have knight d5, knight b4. So good move here by Duda. He goes b4. And now Gukesh can simply plonk his bishop on d3, or he can take and play bishop d3, but he goes queen g4. Oof. Now bishop f1 is, I think, the best move, and then you take on b4. It's very important here to take. Gukesh, don't play queen f3 to attack the rook. Because, oh, he plays it. A blunder. Because now b5 is super strong. Yes, Gukesh has seen that rook g1 is a mistake because of rook g4. And then the knight joins into the attack. But b5 is an incredibly strong move. And Duda finds it. What a move. Sacrificing his rook here so that ba6 and you can queen. He goes knight g4. He's threatening a mate. Queen f2, knight e3 coming in. So you need to save it. But queen a2 is a beautiful move and Duda finds it. He not only defends f2 but also keeps a pressure on f7 with rook c7 coming in. Queen takes h1 taken by Gukesh. And now there's this beautiful move, rook c7. The game is actually almost over. Duda plays it. Gukesh's king is in big problems. Queen f3, and now there is a beautiful move, bishop g2. I don't know if he can find it. No, he doesn't find it. B takes a6 taken here. A huge mistake. The best move was bishop g2 trying to deflect the queen, and after queen f5 you have bishop e4. And if queen f6 you have b takes a6 now with a completely winning position. But instead Duda takes here on a6. Gukesh gets his chance back. Rook takes h2, threatening now rook f2 move. It's very difficult for Duda. He finds the only defensive move, queen e2. And now Gukesh chops off the pawn on f2. Fantastic. He's now threatening the queen. Of course, you must take the queen. E takes f3. And it might seem like black's attack is over and pawn is queening, but not really. Pawn a7. Yes, the pawn is one step away from queening, but look at this move. Rook b2, fantastic chess, threatening f2, king d1, knight e3 check. And knight c8, the only move. Duda finds it, threatening to queen. Gukesh takes on e3. Now there's a checkmate, threaten nothing less than that. Knight takes d6 check. If you take rook d6, 8 queen with a check. So king f8 played, that was the only move. Rook takes f7. King g8, and what a tactical game this is. Somehow Duda manages to get rid of this unbelievably strong pawn on f3, rook f3, and now knight takes f1 taken. The resulting position, black is an exchange up, but white has this insanely strong pawn on a7 still alive. Duda goes rook f7. If you try to attack the knight which is defending the rook, I simply go rook d7 defending the knight. So rook b4 played, attacking the a4 and d4 pawns. Rook comes to c7, king h7 played here. And now knight to c8. This move is very strong. It kind of defends the pawn. Also, if the rook moves away, there is knight b6. Gukesh takes on d4. We are on move 38. And Duda can play knight b6. He plays it. And now rook f8. You can even take on a7. Could be a potential draw there. But rook f8 check. King e2. And now he goes for a check. King f3. And Gukesh gives a check to the king. 40 moves are done. Both players get 30 extra minutes on the clock. King f2. And the game, which was like high octane with so many possibilities for both sides, has now simplified into a drawn position where both sides, I'm pretty sure, are happy with the peace treaty, especially after the amount of fight that was seen here. Rook d3 check. And king f2. I wonder who would be more unhappy in this game, because Gukesh was surely kind of dominating right from the opening. But then at some point he actually got a lost position, and you don't know whether you should shake hands or call the arbiter. And Gukesh says, I'm going to play rook d3. And a draw has been agreed here. What an insane game. I would say one of the most exciting games of the Sinquefield Cup 2025. Both of them look at each other, smile, and Gukesh is like something, and Duda is like, let's go outside and analyze at peace. Yeah, that was just outstanding, and maybe we can have a look at this couple of key moments so that you can understand the intensity and the decision making of both the players. What a thin line they were walking when they found the only moves. Kudos to both Gukesh and Duda for this brilliant fight. The fireworks began when Gukesh played his knight to f6, because he allowed Duda to come to c4 and attack both his pawns. And then he defended on d8, giving up the b6 pawn. a5. Now the dream scenario for black is to get this diagonal on a6 and to somehow plonk the knight on b4. Of course, Duda was going to stop it, and I like this move g takes h4, because there are many moves like say rook c1 where I can take on g3, take on g3, rook h1, bishop h1 and queen h3, and suddenly the bishop is trapped here. You don't want to reach such situations. So that's the reason why g takes h4 makes sense. Rook takes h4 was a mistake by Gukesh. Bishop a6 was a better move. When the rook came to c1, he finally found bishop a6, b4, and now came queen g4, a typical human Gukesh move, attacking the bishop on g2, bishop f1, and now this move queen f3. If he had taken here and then played queen f3, things would have been much different. But instead, when he went directly queen f3, Duda found the only move, which was b5. And this is important, because instead of b5, if you played rook g1, then rook g4, threatening here, and after rook takes g4, you have knight g4, and f2 is hanging. So you go here and then bishop f1 with a completely crushing position, because king f1 is met with knight e3 check. So in the game, b5 was played, and now knight g4, attacking here, queen a2, amazing move. Queen takes h1, and now this beautiful move rook c7. At this point, if you played the move d5 trying to block this diagonal, queen a3 leads to a forced mate on e7. So queen f3 was played, defending the pawn on f7. But here came the move, the big blunder by Duda taking here. If he had found the move bishop g2, it was done. Okay, the queen has to keep control of f7, so goes queen f5. Now bishop e4 is an insanely strong move, bd5 coming next. So that's the reason why you go queen f6. And now you can take on a6, but even knight d5 is tremendously strong, threatening rook e7 and all of these things. And Duda was winning. But when he played ba6, now it became like the only move battle. Rook h2 only move, queen e2, rook f2 only move, queen takes f3 only move, e takes f3 only move, a7 only move, rook b2, beautiful move, threatening to play f2, knight e3 check, take on f1 and queen. So let's say if you make a queen here, I simply take knight a8 and now f2, king here, check, king c1, and I can even go and chop off this bishop which is winning, or rook b8 followed by knight f1 and queen. So knight c8, another only move found, blocking the rook's path, but more importantly after knight e3 threatening a checkmate. Here knight d6 was the move that was found. Rook d6 loses to queen and f3 pawn falls, so king f8, and now this is how the game ended in a draw.